Witam Państwa ponownie na konferencji CoL3 on Live.
Welcome back to CoL3 on Live. We'll have a discussion on streaming services. We'll have Marek Hojda in the panel, also Agnieszka Odorowicz, Patrycja Łobaczewska, Aga Samitowska and Miłosz Bębinow.
Witam Państwa.
Welcome.
Mamy tutaj znakomitych gości.
We have wonderful guests with us, streaming specialists in new technologies. The discussion
o przyszłości serwisów streamingowych.
is to concentrate on the future of streaming services, but before we'll start on that, I think it will be worthwhile to sketch a picture of the current situation and then perhaps try to predict the future, or do some fortune telling. So, in a couple of words, let's try to define where we are. We have about 200 streaming services. In streaming services, the way it is that the price is pretty much the same, and generally we have the same set of songs, about what, 70 million songs? 70 million. So, are we in a single service or two? It doesn't really matter, because we have the same repertoire, we are paying the same thing. Video services, the way they concentrate on, the way they are different is that I'm talking about video services, not the small ones when we have video on demand, pay-per-view. We are talking about subscription-based services where we pay on monthly basis and we get unlimited access. These services have various prices and various offers when it comes to films. So in order to watch a lot of movies, for example, Star Wars, The House of Cards, etc., we have to buy two subscriptions on two different platforms. So Patrycja, maybe I'll start with you. In what direction do you think music services will go? And there are 200 of them. Will they consolidate? Are some going to take over others? They're very often similar, right? So from the point of view of service marketing, it would be probably worthwhile to be different, right? To be unique, to attract subscribers to your service, not to others. So please tell me, are there any moves like that on parts of those services to be different? I think these directions of development can be very different. There is no one single answer. Streaming services, of course, for a while they've been competing at the level of sound quality. We know, for example, that on the Polish market, Tidal offers a service in which you have CD quality or even FLAC files. Deezer also has a subscription in which you can buy higher sound quality. Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, they're going in a different direction. They offer standard 320 kilobytes per second, and it seems that they concentrate on other points. I have an impression that Spotify, for example, which controls about 30% of the global market when it comes to music subscriptions, they bet a lot on user engagement, on unique content, on podcasts, and it's going in the direction of having streaming services to be partially also social media services. I've heard interesting information recently that Spotify, for example, on the Vietnam market, introduces a button of recording your reaction to playlists that you're listening to. In my opinion, this could be revolutionary because it encourages to react spontaneously, to give our opinions in form of a recording, and it's being tested on the Vietnamese market only so far, not the entire one. And a lot is being said that it's going to be also adopted to other global market, and we can also assume that Spotify perhaps will go in this direction of engaging the fan base, of switching the emphasis from strict social media services to streaming services, so that this platform unifies people who seek access to unique content, who like to express their opinion, who talk a lot about what's happening in artist catalogs, who people who support those artists actively. There are services like, for example, the Winamp, which is being born again, so to speak. Of course, I think we all remember Winamp. It used to be the most popular player of MP3 files in the past. So it refers a bit to this nostalgia feeling when everybody was using Winamp. So I think here in the fall, Winamp is supposed to have its premiere, and its service is supposed to bet very strongly on fan-artist contact. They also say they will introduce NFI very quickly, and allowing to concentrate around particular artists, support them financially, support unique content, which shows that this direction of going into kind of listener engagement, so it's no longer just passive listening, becomes more and more pronounced. So outside of these 70 million pieces, you'll have exclusive content for additional fee, right? Yes. What that could be? Remixes, unpublished, yeah. Remixes, live concerts, various backstage stuff, interviews, talks. Information from studios, for example, versions of songs which were not recorded on official albums. So I think this contact between the fan and the band, and being engaged in financing the band, is quite important. As we all know, the way it is in streaming services, if you're a fan of a single band and you listen to that band, the money this person pays monthly is not going to that band, but it's going to this general amount that is being accounted for monthly. But going in the direction, giving the fan a feeling or a certainty that the money he or she is spending is going to the artist that they're listening to, is definitely a pathway that everybody is very much interested in. You are the head of the Polish branch of Believe in TuneCore, global concern. You have contracts with how many services? About 250 services in the world. Please tell us, what is the relation of these small local services in various countries to these big ones? Spotify, Apple, Amazon. Is it worthwhile to actually put songs on those platforms if you're a Polish artist? I think, yeah, it's always worthwhile, in my opinion. I'm a fan of this approach that putting your piece on all possible platforms can always bring some fruit. Of course, the structure of streaming services is different in various markets. Spotify, Easel, Tidal, Apple Music, YouTube Music, which recently has been growing very strongly. These are the main services on which users and listeners concentrate on. Of course, the actual order is different. For example, Tidal is popular in Poland, in Bulgaria and the US, but not so much in Western Europe, where they don't even know what Tidal is very often. So it can shape quite differently. I think this domination that we've been observing, the domination of these main services, can be disturbed a bit in the future, because the signals we're getting, the signals on the creation of new services, for example, SoundOn, we've all heard quite a bit about. This is TikTok's service. It's being tested on 4 markets: American, British, Indonesian, and Brazilian ones. Those markets constitute a place where the service is being tested, and I think that the entry of this service can kind of rock the boat a bit. This service wants to really pay attention to discovering new talents, to find new artists who haven't been discovered yet, to then transforming their art into or putting it on a TikTok platform, and supporting them from marketing point of view. Also, in the narrative of people who work in SoundOn, you can hear that it's supposed to be a promotional pattern, first and foremost, not necessarily distribution one, but promotion one. So we can see that yet another pathway of development is a certain promise of promoting an artist who so far is just, home-based artist and is just starting out. So I think that in the future we'll see a much greater diversification on this market. We know that Spotify is a great service, has a great product, and definitely the advantage of this service is not going to go down very quickly, but the multitude of these services and the variety of choice they give is going to be significantly greater in the future. Agnieszka, please tell me, in your view, the model that big video streaming services function at this various repertoire for various prices, does it surprise the business side of the film industry and also the artistic side? So is there more money in the business and is the quality of movies better because of that? I think it was that case in the beginning. The appearance of big players on the Polish market created a certain production boom. We've had a lot of TV series, video series, which wouldn't have been created normally on the Polish market because they also function a global model, then the distribution is completely different and the income and so on, because, well, it's obvious if HBO or Netflix produces a series, then it's meant for a number of markets, right, number of countries, and the revenues are being accounted for differently. I've been looking with envy to my colleague here who's been talking about music business, because as you know, film is much different from other media because it's very expensive and it's time consuming when it comes to its production, which creates a lot of complications connected with distribution. In the post-pandemic world, this is a very difficult time now, I think all over the world, for movies which were produced in the past with movie theaters in mind, because generally we have smaller and smaller audiences going to movie theaters from month to month. So a lot of money has been drained away, the money that the funds that basically first filled this most expensive field of production movies. For example, since I've been working in digital post, I cooperated, 12 films. The average was 911,000 viewers, which means that basically all the movies were paid for based on income from movie tickets. Today, however, we have 1/3 of movie audiences of what we used to have, which means that this field stopped generating income. So there is a great expectation now that we will produce for other areas which should equalize the costs of production of audiovisual content. Let's remember that a movie ticket costs as much as monthly subscription of a service on which you can watch 100 movies a month on 3 screens, etc. So there is a huge discrepancy here. To be clear, let me say that out of the ticket which costs 40 zloty, let's say, 20 zloty out of that, that is 50%, stays in the movie theater. Only the 20 goes to the distributor. If it goes well, because the longer the movie is in the movie theater, the larger percent stays with the movie theater. But let's say it's 50%, so out of the 50% that goes to the distributor first takes its own costs, its own provision, etc., and its commission, and whatever is left is given to the movie producer as compensation for some of the cost productions, and in some cases, profit. Because there were such movies, movie theaters, which had such viewership that they brought profit right away. But that's definitely in the minority of movie offer. And in today's post-pandemic world, I think we will rarely have a situation in movie theaters where a movie will pay for itself just from the tickets. So that's why, for example, me, within Polsat Group, I have to change as movie producer my production strategy completely. So I have to stop producing movies thinking only about movie theaters and income from that, because that's probably not going to happen. and I have to think about diversifying revenue risk and with whom potentially I can share my revenue so that someone can finance with me the production costs, which can be 8–10 million zloty today. Because me, by myself, making a movie for 10 million, I have very little chance of actually getting return on investment. And that implicates, of course, answers to your question. Today, the case is that every platform, including us, we want to have unique content. Polsat Box Go, this season, our viewers will have 10 new TV series. Of course, this is very costly. And each of these big players does pretty much the same thing. But there are certain cases as well when we cooperate. For example, Naimro, this was a post-pandemic movie hit in Poland. About 350,000 watched it. Normally it would be probably 1,200,000 in the pre-pandemic world. But it's a movie which Netflix bought. The English title is The Getaway King. And we basically shared income. Why? Because it was a very expensive movie to produce, and of course it was better for us to share the costs. And the next movie project, with greater project normally, when it comes to costs, we are doing with CoL+, because we know very well that, well, we and we have slightly different viewers, but we can share costs here, both in production and in revenue. So looking at the business model, it doesn't really make much sense to merge, because from the business point of view, the more services with unique content, the more money on the market, because people have to buy more subscriptions, but that's not going to be like that, because all the research, all the market research shows us that people will either stay in one or two streaming services when it comes to video. And I'm talking here about services which have serials and films. Of course, there are certain other video content services, but concentrating on films and series. So statistically, we'll have 1.5 service, right? Which means that people will have to make a choice. What's happening today, we can see it all over the world, because Disney Plus is basically slowly taking over Netflix, and audiences are moving away from Netflix, which means that these services became subsidiary in nature. In other words, if a customer needs to make a choice, basically he moves or she moves away from one service and goes to another one. So this competition is there, and it's going to increase. And I don't know whether the strategy of staying competitive through producing high-budget original content is viable in long perspective, because the costs are so huge. Because I don't know if income on very competitive market are going to equalize that. What's going to happen then? The services will stop producing the unique film content, or the subscription prices will increase. Increasing subscription prices is not going to be that easy. I think we'll have certain alliances when it comes to production, or these big portals will share content. For example, we have this content for half a year, then you have it, so the producer will be able to sell the same content to various platforms. Of course, there will be certain flagship products which will be meant to attract to specific locations certain viewers, but aside from that, this entire mass that has, this bulk has to be produced just to stay attractive. I think in the future it's going to be co-created in cooperation, because this exclusivity is becoming more and more expensive from year to year. We see it on the Polish market, because by going to the of big players on the Polish market, production costs increase tremendously, especially human costs, human resources costs. And today today making an ambitious artistic movie by a young director, even with state support by the Polish Institute of Film, it's becoming very difficult because there is nowhere to get the second half of financing from. Movie theaters, as I've said, they're not to be dependent on anymore. So I think, first of all, in this market, we'll have merging of services and portals, and a good example here is Discovery and HBO Max. There was quite a bit of mix-up with HBO Max coming to Poland recently. We've had that, yeah, we all know. Probably that service is going to receive a different name quite soon. And before it's going to start making money, it's going to be a while. But I think there will be certain consolidations on this market, and there will be an attempt to split costs when it comes to content production. I think there is no other way, because content is not going to become cheaper when it comes to film. Aga, in your view, is it possible to shift this model from film services, that is many services, various prices, and different content, that is in one service we find this artist, we will not find him in another one? Is that possible? Is that viable from business perspective? Let me remind you that Tidal did that with Beyonce record, which is only available on Tidal. Yeah, there were certain special circumstances here. We all know about that. Yeah, certain copyrights issues. Kanye West, by the way, was similar, right? But Lemonade, that album is only in Tidal. So if somebody else wants to listen, they have to go to the shop and buy the record. Now, is that movie model proving itself? And let's not mention Tidal anymore. That was, different issue. The wife of the owner issued, and so on. So let's imagine music services. Kings of Leon is one service, Depeche Mode is in another. Is that possible? Does that make sense? I understand you're asking about the future. In the context of the future, I think that Patrycja has really identified the tendency. I think this viewer engagement, so it's not as much what we show them, but what possibilities of participation, of co-participating we give them. And this is what Web 3.0 gives us. But services are based on Web 2. Yeah, but they will have to adapt, nevertheless. And in my view, they will have to adapt in that respect, in the viewer engagement. Perhaps of going more into UGC, TikTok. Perhaps is showing us what the future is going to look like. And it's also showing us the great potential in the context of the fact that film production, as Agnieszka was saying, is very expensive. But I also bear in mind the great talents that you can see on internet and internet creators, what you can see on daily basis through YouTube or TikTok or what's already in NFT.
Mam wrażenie, że cała nowa gałąź.
I have an impression that an entire new branch of creators is being born. I mean, they've always been there, but now finally they have a platform where they can spread their wings, and present their digital content.
Myślę, że przyszłość jest.
So I think that future lies in giving appropriate space to new creators and to creating audience engagement in a different way. But in what way? That's the question, isn't it? Because I think you meant here connecting Web3, introducing this functionality into streaming services, because services a while ago, in the name of transparency or making better for the artists, started with dashboards where everybody can check dashboards and so on, where it's being listened to, in what city, etc. So it's a great tool. Spotify also brought the brought the possibility of uploading its pieces. We mentioned it last year at the conference. So it's a certain bow towards artists, showing you that we are transparent. As Patricia mentioned, although I'm not sure of that many, because Spotify allows of being in social media a bit, that is, the artist can kind of impact the profile. But in title, we can. Unfortunately, the microphone quality is very bad. Please keep the mic up.
So Spotify
is the key service when it comes to various functionalities to artists. From your point of view, you're the manager of broadcast, you've been in this business for a while. Are there any other functionalities which, if they were made available through streaming services, they would make it easier for your artists, for you, when it comes to contact with fans, for maintaining relations with fans? Well, the entire revolution is more about the fan, not the artist, right? It's about giving the fan more tools to interact with idols. But I think an artist already has a lot of tools, even now. And that was mentioned at the previous panel. It's not always the case that artists want to particularly or are able to. They're artists, right? They want to create, they want to write songs, and they're not always interested in
chcą do tego stopnia
in being engaged individually in searching for fan base. So the future is about fans. It's about communities, right? It's about fan base structure. We give them the tools so that they can have a more decisive voice about what's valuable for them. So right away we can see that it's already functioning in the world 2.0, Web 2, TikTok again, right? So in TikTok, aside from being a platform where which functions mostly through the viewers basically uploading the UGC content, there is a whole system of prices. These diamonds, right, that you can make as a creator, or that you can actually award others with. So this is a very vital element, which is an absolute basis in the platforms of the future, because when we're talking about Web 3, we have to bear in mind that it's based on blockchain. We have to bear in mind then that there, in the circulation of the system, we have a certain token. And that was already mentioned in the previous panel, that the paradigm of what we are monetizing is changing, because at this point we are monetizing. In other words, attractive artist is the one who has the most followers, right? Who has the most openings, the most listens to. So we're going to the max. But in the future, because we have this token underneath, what's going to be monetized, what's going to be important is going to be the value of the token. That is, in other words, to what degree the society enters the relationship, to what degree it impacts the development of the project, which obviously includes the value of the token. That Patricia mentioned, the centric model in a slightly different world. And here the main role of the services is allowing the fans of doing just that, of allowing them to impact the content, to subsidize the creativity of the artist. So the quality of the fan is more important than the quantity.
An anecdote came to my mind regarding recording of reactions of listeners to specific pieces of music. At a festival in Japan, we were showing our films. Let's use the example of The Getaway King. And in a huge movie theater where there were people discuss with one another, discussion on whether the main protagonist died or is he live or not. There were half of the movie theater was for him being alive, and the other half were for the fact that he died. When it turned out that he was alive, applause. The audience broke into applause. There's a completely different form of collective participation in movie watching. For us, it was shocking at that point, and from what you're saying now, is we see that this will be generally the direction or the way in which we will receive art, what the creator wants to tell us, but also what my attitude towards it is. Recently, on the internet, I heard that Spotify patented a technology, an A&R technology, which is to map audience listeners and to fish out those so-called trendsetters. And based on their listening and their let's say discovery on the platform, this will be an important element in promoting this or that artist. I know two platforms like that. Miłosz. Zajk deals with licensing both music services and video services. What are the biggest obstacles in distributing royalties will the future bring? Will the situation be better or worse? The subscription prices in Poland are at the same level of 20 zlotys per month. So if you factor in the inflation and unwillingness to raise the prices, how should the creators approach the future? Creators should always be hopeful about the future, otherwise there'll be no room for creation. But before I answer that question, when I was listening to my colleagues before me, I took some notes. Although these services differ a lot, you say 20 zlotys, but audiovisuals, I mean, the level doesn't differ a lot, but we have much more expensive content. But the tickets to the movies, but also concert, I haven't heard of a concert that would cost an amount multiplied many times higher than the cost of the streaming. When we think along copyrights, we think where is the remuneration of the artist, what is the level of the money. But to touch upon the discussion that we heard a moment ago, in fact, without a token, we can diversify the level of support. That is possible. We can be user-centric, but not only. Classic crowdfunding also provides that possibility. I'm able to support my favorite band who wants to record an album, and I can use 20 zlotys to support them and get a signed copy of their album. But I can also support them with 5,000 zlotys, and I can perform with them, not being a musician, although I can't play any instrument. So it is possible. So we're saying we want to build it in a Web3 world, and so without a token, it is possible. The quality of the level of support for my favorite artists or the one whom I want to support, because I'm, for example, curious what will happen with them, it is possible. regardless of whether this next general virtual world how it will create it, it will be remodeled. The Internet 2.0 is also at a different place than it used to be a couple years back. As for the services, this possibility to create or impact what's going on as to what song should be recorded, sad or happy, or what's going to happen in the movie plot further on. I don't want to advertise anyone, but in a very popular audiovisual service in Poland, a movie, well, it's not actually a movie, a type of animated movie created based on a very popular, if not the most popular game in Mines, where you square blocks and you chip them. You can control from the remote whether you want to go there or there, talk to this person or that person, how a protagonist should answer. So that is happening, but I want to take it even a step further. I had an opera a dozen or so years ago, and there was a reality show element to it. At some point it broke down, and then the audience decided whether the main protagonist should return to her beloved ones or should move on. And the audience decided what direction should be taken. And Lehart, the land of laughter, that was. But I wanted to say that these ideas have been in existence for a long time. I feel that people can be burned out by this very quickly, so in the longer run, it's not really fun that I can decide what will happen or how it will continue. The services will offer that, it will be made possible, but it will die of natural causes. Although I imagine that at some point that there will be services, a typical service like one or two, in which we all know that we can choose whether a movie, a song ends with C major or G major, or whether a movie will end with a happy end or not. Money, more or less, a very brutal question. Okay, let's deal with that one. Maybe that's not a question for me, but to Mr. Glapiński. But I think that we need to think about the models, about how we want to settle the cost. Like Agnieszka said, we have a certain absorption of the market, so we're not able to expect that a service will raise its subscription, because there's a threshold of pain here. So the quantity of audience, of listeners, will flow away at some point. Disney has entered the market very aggressively. With its price, it exceeded Netflix. I said globally, not in Poland. Yes, sure. And now, in my opinion, there will be more or less the same amount of money. The question is how it will be divided. So what for in the first panel, the pie division, I don't like this pie division as a composer and as a creator. I don't like it. I'm at the very end. My royalty comes absolutely last. Okay. And that pie, the Minister of Finance earns more because the VAT tax is when the streaming services, the label, the creator has the smallest portion. Yes, but indeed, if we went in the direction of changing a model towards a user-centric one, then I have faithful fans who are listening and buying out subscriptions and listen only to my music, then the money, which is quite logical, and I often talk to artists and young creators. It's not that you can have truly faithful fans in the streaming services, but the money will feed into this entire general pool, and let's say the most of it will be taken up by Ed Sheeran, ultimately. So when we're talking at the in a broader horizon, the EU or the EU of the so-called old Western EU states are able to enforce streaming services to remodel that, because without a strong impulse on a large scale, this will not happen. And we know that the services are ready to remodel the system of settling royalty, so that the royalty for the artist is received, follows the actual use of their repertoire. But we'll change the share a bit, but there will be that won't mean more money for Zeiks. Zeiks can, no, it will bring more money, because today, maybe I shouldn't say this out loud,
w końcu robię też filmy. Dzisiaj nie mamy do czynienia z pewną równowagą. Znaczy zasady nie są dla wszystkich takie same.
Balance on the market. The rules are not equal for everyone. There are large streaming. So I'm talking about movie and TV series, which avoid any type of legal and authorship payments, and we compete on the same market. So the viewers, when they have to choose between X and Y with similar prices, with similarly good content, not the same, but with a similarly good content, let's say, they don't think twice that one of those streaming services are okay, and they share their rights, their revenues with creators, and the other one doesn't. The viewers don't think about that. So that is a challenge for the future, because if the market is to become more democratized and more transparent, then we should have the same rules for everyone. I mean, there will be more money in Zeiks if, for royalties, there will be more portion of the pie system than at the domestic, national level, where the entire Polish repertoire is niche. Sorry to say, but it is niche. If we're talking about songs, due to language, for one of the reasons. But my song, present on a streaming service, is subject to the same settlement criteria as a song that lasts 3 minutes. My tour lasts 30 minutes, and it's not a music that someone will put on repeat and listen through and through. This is something that you listen to, you experience, and this is not a music that you return to many times. The completely different situation is with songs. In a linear radio, the broadcast time is important. So the fact that the song lasts longer means that it will earn more. A song has to be played 10 times in the same bandwidth to earn as much as a 30-minute piece. But we're talking about a situation here in streaming services where this is not existent. In audiovisual services, the so-called use is important. It doesn't matter that this movie lasts 33 hours and that one lasts 15 minutes. You won't watch a 3-hour movie more than once unless it's really excellent. Whereas a movie miniature, we can revisit for some reasons, and things that settling this, what Agnieszka said. So balancing, but also sustainability, the sustainability of the market, a sustainable market, that is something that we need to aim at. And then, indeed, certain processes will be civilized. Perhaps we understand the word pie differently, because I understand the pie that we have the 20 zlotys from the streaming services. And we as creators have around 15% from that. If any money, because in Poland we also have situations in which we creators have nothing from it. Okay, but let's say they follow the law. We have 15% of the streaming services. With a user-centric model, we will not have 20. So for the pie to expand, for the authors, we need to limit the presence of others in that pie. So to 20% at the cost of the service itself was YouTube takes 40%, for example, of operational costs, which seems strange and too much. One of the biggest companies in the world, does it need as much as 40% of operational costs? We're talking about YouTube here. So if they decrease their price a bit, and then our 15% would perhaps grow to 20%, or we need to increase the prices. But if all services in Poland take 20 zlotys, none of them will get ahead of the game. In case of film services, it is possible because one service can say, okay, we have Star Wars, or so we're increasing our price. If you want to watch that movie, you need to come to us. But services, audiovisual services, would need to agree on a certain strategy, which is not possible because that would be an anti-monopoly case. If we were to remodel the functioning, the repertoire would work completely differently, because then locally, and by locally I mean, for example, in Poland, this will start making money more quite differently for Polish artists. And when we have the same criteria for different genres, jazz, classic, pop, rock, metal, we have the same criteria for different genres and styles, and secondly, for different authors who, due to their reach, have different opportunities. The Ed Sheeran mentioned by me will have more different, let's say, striking force on the listeners compared to a debuting artist. So, in my opinion, if you're asking about the future, sure, we would like to impact the models so that it can be more objective, because I think it's not objective. That's the main problem. The world has agreed to this, and the collective management and the global collective management has agreed to it, but that was the Western world, influenced by different circumstances, and we don't have time to go into that historically. But now is the time to civilize it in an objective manner, because I think that the criteria that I've mentioned, and we all agree to that we cannot apply the same rules towards completely different content, and this is what we're facing with. I gave you the example of classical versus all the other types of music, but that is present in all different walks of life. The role of the collective management organization, or organizations who represent authors, creators, is to continuously fight for our interests and the interests of the creators, and this is what we are and will continue to do. Okay, so to sum up, if every one of you could offer a couple of words on how you imagine a streaming service of the future, either video or music. Patricia. Let me comment on the music services due to the sector I work with. For me, streaming service and its future should lie in providing fans with tools which would allow them to become involved in the creation of artists, and which would allow them to support artists directly, not necessarily by throwing money into one general pool and the artists would get them only by way of some ricochet. NFTs, metaverse, offering different possibilities to fans to participate in certain events to which they are physically unable to get. I think this is the future, but also the issue of settling streaming services, which is highly criticized right now. So the way that money from subscriptions is settled, criticized. In the UK, we've had a big discussion on that recently. Many well-known musicians supported the change, and we know that SoundCloud has become interested in entering that and is already settling royalties. Tidal and Diesel have expressed their interest. Partially, yes, and in Poland, this system is also partially user-centered. What should be the price of the service? Higher, lower? What will be better for the brand? We need to revise the prices, if only for the FX rate changes, which is not without significance. I think in the nearest future we will have to have pay raises, and that these are the signals that we receive from the world, and the increase of price should occur. And in the future, I think this is something that we are all facing. But to sum up, a nod towards the fan and is the future of streaming services. Agnieszka, a perfect video service. What price and what should it have? It's a pity from the point of view of client but video services will experience also pay rises related to drastic fall of the Polish currency and the price that we pay, and a huge gap between what we pay for the services compared to countries which are less prone to inflation. But it's hard to say what the future of video services will be today. Films go by some different laws. Five American majors have a lot to say in films that they produce the blockbusters that we are all interested in. We, in the American, for local services, it will be necessary to consolidate. Cooperate
współdzielenia kosztów
and on a co-sharing basis in terms of costs, but also encouraging to interaction. That is the future of cinematography. It'll be good to audiences, if we like some movie or some TV series, that we could have more impact on whether a sequel, prequel would be created. This is very tempting, but due to the fact that it's so horrendously expensive, this way to direct impact of fans on a piece of work is longer. In the future, though, it will be noticeable. As the audiovisual world, it seems, is not doing enough in terms of engaging fans of a TV series. I think that the industry could learn from the experiences of the music streaming services. We're talking about Polish music versus English-speaking music. When in 2005 I became the head of the Polish Film Institute, all 700,000 tickets were sold for all Polish movies. When I finished my when I was finishing my 10-year term, there were 12 million, and Polish films were equally well frequented as American ones on the American market. Obviously, because Polish movies have no chance on the American market in competing with the American ones, but locally, if the productions are good, and I think this year's festival in Gdynia, which starts coincidentally today, shows that the Polish movies are increasingly better. By the way, please go to Gdynia and attend that festival and see it for yourself. The effective way of competing is what is happening now. Okay, but when we took Spotify and YouTube in the top 20 in our country, yes.
Serwis marzeń twój.
A dream service for you. I don't think it's about a dream service. I think the nearest future are the current services, but more in 2.5, Web 2.5. So Spotify introducing tickets or merch, but also the opportunity to buy NFT or some opportunities for fans of a more, let's say, extended reality.
Web 3
but will not
to też zaznaczyło,
still be
te wszystkie platformy po prostu obecne.
All the present platforms are so the businesses are rooted in the technology that
coś nowego. Natomiast powstaną nowe.
They will not transform completely, but new ones will be created. I hope that we'll have more time to talk about it, but the platform, streaming audience platform, which is completely decentralized, PTT rights are completely, but it's taken out of CSAC management, yes, but they ignore that. However, they state that they have 6 million users and 100,000 artists who upload their music. So it's worth observing, because this is a platform working on a DAO idea, so there is no single company managing, but the entire community. This is, they say that they are a SoundCloud, but with grassroots tokens, bottom-up ones. Miłosz, your expectations as a ZAIX CEO? I think we will work on this. Looking at, from the point of view of organization, we need to continuously observe the markets and exceed certain things, hence the presence and initiative, because it's nice to dream about things and to talk about the fantastic qualities that a metaverse or some other world can have, but when we compare the level of revenues, we heard about the 3-minute songs in the first panel. Why 3 minutes? There are still 3-minute songs because the foundation of revenues for organizations protecting copyright laws are linear radios, and we have, in terms of copyrights and ownership rights, we haven't organized and managed that yet, and now we're already talking about other different creations which will happen, but it's hard to anticipate their ultimate reach. It may turn out that it's not contrary to what we expect, but we also can have a situation in which it will blast off everything that we have had so far. Like I mentioned before, our organization will fight for the interests of creators as much as possible. Thank you to all the panelists for your discussion, and I would like to ask perhaps a question to the room. Does anyone have any questions? So I think everything was clear. I'm very happy, and thank you. So join us for a short break. Thank you.